Hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and today I'm going to give my thoughts on the infamous boxing match set to take place tomorrow between the Demigod of Thunder and Edward Holloway, because everybody has already kind of seemed to give their predictions, and most people are leaning towards Thor. Nick Strength and Power put out a video saying he thinks Thor is going to win, as well as Greg Doucette also made a response to Nick Strength and Power putting out a video saying that he thought that Thor was going to win. And in all of this, they talk about things like height advantage, weight advantage, cardio, but none of these people are boxers, so I figured I would come, throw my hat, or I guess my gloves that I'm not wearing, into the ring and give my opinion from somebody who actually knows the sport inside and out. And now, the first thing I kind of want to get out of the way first is this idea of height advantage. Everyone talks about how Hafthor has a height and a reach advantage, and I really don't like that. I hate when people talk about this height advantage, because height is not an advantage in boxing. It just straight up isn't. Height is a factor that influences the way that you fight. A taller fighter will fight a lot more on the back foot and will throw a lot more straight punches and jabs in order to keep the shorter fighter away. You do not want the shorter fighter to get close to you. On the opposite end of that, a shorter fighter like Edward Holloway is going to try and burrow in, or like myself, get in close, burrow in, slip past that jab, get past the defense of the taller fighter and get super close. You want to be almost, I like to lean on my opponent. I like to burrow in. I was sparring someone the other day, and they had never sparred me before, and they described me as a tick, and that is kind of how shorter fighters need to fight. They need to constantly be on you, because if they are not, if they fight center ring, if they try to fight center ring with a taller fighter, they will lose. They will get the crap jabbed out of them, right? But when you're in close like that, when you're up close and you're leaning on top of somebody, long arms is no longer an advantage. Long arms becomes a disadvantage, because in that close, tight quarters space, as well as being short, because being short in that close, tight quarters space allows you a lot more maneuverability, and you can slip a lot easier than a taller fighter would. But that also, those shorter arms give you a lot more ability to fire off power punches in that cramped, tight space. You don't need as much room to get optimal extension, or even any real extension at all. In a shorter space, a taller fighter's arms and punches can get smothered, and they'll have no power behind them. So in this fight between Eddie and Thor, I don't like to... I hate when people talk about the height advantage, because it's not an advantage. It just simply dictates how you fight. If Eddie tries to fight Thor center ring, he's not going to win. However, if Eddie burrows in, can slip past Thor's punches and stay on Thor then is put at a massive disadvantage. So let's get that out of the way. There's a reason in boxing that they are separated by weight class, not by height class. There's no such thing as a height category. Weight is a lot more of an advantage than height is, and even then, weight is one advantage among many. Now, Eddie's slightly heavier than Thor, and people say that, oh, that's because he won't, people are saying that he won't have the stamina to keep things up. Honestly, I don't really know. It's a difference between 20 pounds, and while sure, in the lighter weight classes, that can be a significant difference. That's 2 weight categories different than me. Or actually, no, it's not. Depending on, well, what weight. Sometimes the weight categories in boxing are very, very complicated sometimes. But right now in the amateurs, that would be the difference of about 1, maybe 2, but you'd be on the lighter end weight categories. Anyway, but in the heavyweight division, that doesn't really matter, especially when we get to people that are the size that these people are. 20 pounds here or there isn't going to make a massive difference, at least in my opinion. I think no matter what, both of these people are going to gas out like that. People do not know what it takes to box. Everyone, like, it is a completely different kind of cardio. And only people who have really been there understand it. I had somebody who would regularly run marathons, no problem, gas out in the first minute of the first round of sparring with me. And anyone who's been in the ring will tell you that sparring is completely different from an actual fight. And even on top of that, to a certain extent, exhibition matches and fights that don't really matter are completely different from massive, like, title fights or fights that can propel you into the spotlight. Each thing adds a level of stress. Each level of stressor adds an element of exhaustion to it, and knowing how to properly manage that is, again, one of the keys to victory. I don't really think any of these people are going to have a trouble with managing their stress. Obviously, they're top-level athletes. What I think the thing that a lot of people are just simply missing when it comes to this, and I guess now would be the time for me to reveal who I think is going to win. I agree. I agree with everybody. I think it's going to be Thor. But not for the same reasons everybody else has given, obviously. Now, much like everybody else, when the fight was first announced, I was giving it hands down to Eddie Hall because he had more experience. He was quicker, more explosive, and just kind of had an idea of what he was doing. But over the course of these 2 years where this fight has taken place, the progression between these two fighters has been very different, in my opinion. Eddie Hall has been focused a lot more on power and explosiveness, which is good for a shorter fighter. I am very powerful, very explosive myself. It's the cornerstone of my style. However, Thor, on the other hand, has focused incredibly hard on the basics. And that is what I think will win Thor the fight. Mainly because Eddie Hall, if you watch a lot of his videos and a lot of his training footage, and pretty much all the training footage that I've seen, keeps his hands by his waist. When I watch Thor, you can see Thor, he's not as flashy, and he's not throwing as all these insane combinations that Eddie Hall's doing. Eddie Hall's practicing all these slips, and he likes to throw massive overhands. But if you watch Thor, a lot of the stuff I see is basic combinations. Hands up, jab cross. Hands up, jab cross, hook, uppercut. The basic 4 punches. But let me let you in on a little secret. That is all you need. You only need to get fancy when you fully mastered the basics. And getting fancy before that is a recipe for danger and a recipe for disaster. And I'm really, honestly, very worried for Eddie Hall from what I have seen. Because while I wouldn't call Eddie Hall short by any means, in this instance, he is the shorter fighter. And he will be needing to fight very similarly to me to win this fight. So I have an idea of what he needs to do to win against a taller fighter. Everyone I fight is 2, 3, 4, 6 inches taller than me. So I have experience it being Eddie in this situation. And what you need is a really good defense, really good head movement, coupled with aggression. You need to be able to get in, but you also need to be able to not get hit. And what I'm worried about is that Eddie Hall focused way too much on power and aggression and kind of neglected defense. Again, he keeps his hands way too low, in my opinion, for somebody at his skill level trying to fight the way that he is. Like, you're not Prince Nassim, and very few people are Prince Nassim, and near the end of Prince Nassim's career, even he wasn't Prince Nassim, right? Like, you need to have an exceptional level of skill in order to rely on head movement, especially solely rely on head movement. I am somebody who's really good at moving my head, but even me, I keep my hands up to here. When I teach anyone boxing, right, the general guidelines I give are hands up either at your temples or your cheekbones, whichever one you prefer and whichever one better fits into your fighting style. Because when you get tired, your hands drop. So if you start with your hands up here, they'll drop to your cheekbones. If you start with your hands to your cheekbones, they'll drop to your chin. But a lot of people fight with their hands kind of at their chin and then they drop to their chest. I've seen Eddie Hall fighting like this, which again, it's okay to do kind of the almost sort of Philly shell-esque thing, but even Eddie, the way he's doing it, and I'll throw videos up on the screen, it's not really even Philly shell, it's more just hands down, and this is fine, you can do that if you're experienced, but I do not think that Eddie Hall has the experience to do that, and he's going up against somebody that has the power to hurt him, right? And so I think he should be a lot more careful. I don't know if, because now let's talk about what everybody else has talked about already. Head movement takes a lot of energy, and I don't know if Eddie Hall has 1, the skill, and 2, the stamina to pull off solely head movement fighting. Solely head movement fighting is exhausting, and I have won fights against people that were technically better. They boxed circles around me the first round, but then boom, I give them a solid body shot. They crumple, and it takes away their legs, it takes away their energy, and they can't use that fancy head movement anymore, and I beat the living crap out of them. And I'm worried that's the same thing that's going to happen to Eddie. He's going to come in confident with all his energy and everything. He's going to gas out. He's going to think he's good, but he just won't have the energy to keep up that style, even if he has the skill to support it. But even beyond that, even if he does have a lot of that stuff, I still don't think, based on how he's fighting, he's going to win. There's an age-old saying in boxing: a strong right hand will take you around the block, a strong jab will take you around the world. And that generally is a sentiment of the basics are the basics for a reason. I think Eddie Hall got more excited and thought that he was a lot better than he actually was, and so he started focusing more on flash and different techniques as opposed to truly mastering the fundamental basics, whereas Thor was the opposite. He didn't really know how to box, and everyone was saying he didn't know how to box, so he buckled in and focused solely on the basics. Now, if you watch Eddie Hall training, you can see that he likes to throw a lot of looping punches and a lot of overhands, which is good against a taller fighter. I love overhands. Overhands are amazing, but in order to properly execute overhands and keep yourself safe, you need exceptional head movement and exceptional defense, because when you throw overhands, you leave yourself open. This is a straight punch. Here's an overhand. Notice how I'm a lot more open, because you need to have the room to let the punch, your opponent's punch, go over top, or rather underneath your hand, because your hand is going over top of an opponent's punch. If you do not understand where you are safe and where you are dangerous, and if you do not have your hands in the right places, you can get knocked out because of that, or seriously hurt. And so, when I see him throwing massive overhands, and when I see Thor throwing mostly straight punches, that's concerning, because here's another issue with overhands. They're slow. A straight jab cross, the 1-2, will be faster than an overhand, because it just simply has less distance to travel. So when I see someone like Eddie keeping his hands low, using a style that requires a lot of energy, even for some of the most skilled boxers on the planet, as well as relying a lot on looping punches, where I see his opponent sticking to the basics, keeping his hands up, keeping his elbows in, and throwing just the basic combinations right down the pipe, it's what allows me to put my money on Thor. So I think a lot of people, in examining this fight, tend to look at things like endurance, height, and weight, and well, sure, like even I went into it. Those things play a massive factor, but I think predicting this fight is gonna be a lot simpler than that, and you don't even need to have a lot of boxing experience. Sure, I went in depth on it because I've got the knowledge and I want to impart some of that knowledge onto you, but realistically speaking, if we just look at how the two have been training and how they seem to fight, what their fighting styles actually are, Thor seems to be a lot more technical. He's got his elbows in, he's got his hands up, and he throws his basic punches, whereas Eddie Hall seems to be a lot more explosive and powerful, sure, but also a lot sloppier, relying a lot more on looping punches with low hands. And sure, you could argue that low hands facilitate head movement, but I would also argue that I don't think Eddie Hall is at the point now where he should be confident enough to leave his hands so low. You can leave your hands sort of low, but as low as Eddie Hall's doing, it's a little bit iffy for me. And so for that reason, just simply watching the two and analyzing their fighting styles, I'm going to have to give my prediction for this fight to Hafthor Bjornsson. But that's really all I have to say for this matter. If you have anything you want to add, or if you disagree with me, leave it in the comments below. But until the next one, I would like to thank all of my Patreon supporters. I know I haven't really put out a video in a while, and the ones that I didn't have you guys mentioned, so sorry for that. But thank you very much. All of you support me immensely and allow me to do what I do and encourage me to keep doing what I do. But if you want to, anyone else wants to support me, all of my links, affiliates, and Patreon and whatever will be in the description. But until the next one, I am not dead yet. Remember, only the strong subscribe, and if you are not either, there is always a tomorrow waiting for you.